Standing up in McKinney, this is According to Callus. I will be coming to you on Monday, the 12th of May, the year of our Lord, 2025. It is episode 741, and it's going to be a Monday update subtitled, They Just Don't Listen. All right, so there's going to be two parts to this. We're going to start with the state of Texas and the shenanigans going on down in the state legislature. And then we're going to pivot to the city of McKinney. Both entities in leadership just don't listen. I'm not saying they're always wrong. I'm not saying that people aren't allowed to make mistakes. I just think they hear what they want to hear and then twist the things that they didn't want to hear to make them mean what they want them to mean. And they're not doing us any favors. Okay, before we jump into that, let me just remind you, the way that you help me, the way that we make a difference is if you like, share, subscribe to this program. Join me on the podcatcher of your choice, whether it's one of the Amazon brands, one of the Apple or Google Play, whatever, Stitcher, TuneIn, Podbean, whatever flavor you like, come and join us. In addition to that, you can find me on the social medias. I have a page and a group over at Facebook. I'm a pro at Gab. I drop in at MeWe. I have Twitter, which I barely use, only because I haven't found a good use for it just yet. And for now, you can find me on YouTube, or at least some of my shows. All right. Here we go on with the program. Okay. So I'm tempted to start with McKinney first, but I think it's important that in the interest of equal time, in the interest of calling them as I see them, this isn't about necessarily left versus right, though there's a component of that. This isn't about Republican versus Democrat, though to be fair, that's always an issue, right? Because everything's always partisan, even when it's not. Policy is personnel and vice versa, right? So I decided we would be better served if I address what's going on in the city of McKinney, and then keeping in mind pretty much everybody in elected office in McKinney claims to be a Republican, with the exception of someone that just won re-election. She's clearly not a Republican, at least not how I would define it. And there is one other member that is not. But pretty much everybody else at least claims to be nominally Republican. And that's part of the problem. We have a big tent. The big tent is there for a reason. But we also have a responsibility to listen to the outcomes of elections. And I'm reliably or unreliably informed that because the quote-unquote anti-airport people lost, then clearly we should just do whatever we want with the airport. or the debate's over. Well, now the city council's voted on it officially and there's no going back. All that may be true, but in the interest of full disclosure, let's take a minute. Let's just review the numbers. So I have the unofficial results from the county dated from the May 3rd election. And this is citywide. 7,600 people voted. That was it. 7,600 people voted for District 3. Now, 53.5 to 46.5. I mean, I guess you can call that a 7-point swing. But it's also right at just under 500 votes, or just over 500 votes if my eye will focus here. So it was 3,859 to 3,351. So that's 508 votes. If you split the difference, which is all it really is, you're looking at 260 votes. Now, myself, I noticed the undervotes are 392. That means people didn't choose either or, right? I mean, that's the way I'm reading it. I could be wrong. That's not a blowout. It's not an insignificant win because it is a known Democrat running against a known Republican. The problem is a good chunk of the establishment Republican base, particularly in two precincts, that'd be 102 and 97, turned out heavily for a Democrat. Now, I'm going to be honest, and I said this from the get-go. She is a pretty darn good council member. She is a very good candidate, and I have nothing bad to say about her. So, to win with 3.5% over the 50%, that's not insignificant, but it's not a major win. And then to credit that solely based on the airport, no. You don't get to have that one. Okay, let's drift over to the other council races here. So the at-large race, we have 19,339 for both the at-large and the mayor. And I think I got this backwards. The under, okay, okay. In either case, the undervote would indicate they voted there, but not, I don't know, doesn't matter. Okay, so I guess for clarification purposes, the undervote means that somebody just didn't vote, even though they lived in that district and they were eligible to vote in that race. So, for instance, Justin Bella received 1,700 votes, but 1,000 people voted in his district that didn't vote for him. Again, when you're running unopposed, there's no reason to vote for that person. But it is interesting because, I mean, that's 60-40 roughly. I mean, off the top of my head, 65-35, whatever. So, I mean, a good candidate that is right of center in District 1 could very easily win that district at this point. On to the council at large race. So 19,339 total votes in the election. In the at large race, though, only 17,129 voted. So that means there were 2,000 people that didn't vote in that race, which is kind of interesting. I mean, if you think about it, that was enough for somebody to come in a solid 5th place. Or I mean 6th place, excuse me. So, all right, what's interesting here is Ernest Lynch got just under 30% of the vote. Jim Garrison did not get 20% of the vote. So that means the top 2 vote getters still got less than 50% of the vote. And then if you throw in the 2,000 people that didn't even bother to vote in that race, that's another 10%, roughly. So that means, in theory, up to 60% of the people in the city of McKinney are not fans of the 2 candidates that were most pro-airport. Just something to consider there. And again, that's a nice round number. We'll be generous and say it's 56%. That 56 will come into play here in just a minute. You'll see why. So, I mean, what are we thinking here? I mean, clearly something's at play. There is not a clear answer. And if you add those 3 up, they got more than 50%, right? Plus the 20% that didn't, the 2,000 that didn't bother to vote, which is another more than 10%. So I'm not buying it. I mean, the top vote getter, Ernest Lynch, with just under 30% of the vote, actually has been pro-airport, but not like over the top. He's at least indicated a willingness to look at the deal that we're getting and whether or not it's what's best for the city of McKinney, rather than go full bore in for it. So, I mean, there is something to be said there. And he's definitely, Mr. Even Keel. The two choices that we have, I mean, he's the less shock to the system, if you will, in my opinion. All right. Now, here comes the mayoral race. Now, this is very interesting to me because 52% of the vote, or I'm sorry, 54, no, let's just say 53%. 53% of the voters did not vote for Bill Cox. Now, Bill Cox did get 46% of the vote, almost 47% of the vote. This is true. But that's, and if your airport's the most important thing, your guy still didn't get a majority. So in the two races that were truly challenged and had multiple factors at play in different options, the pro-airport side, the best they could do was 47% of the vote, or if you count the Lynch Garrison vote at 49%. I mean, and again, that's with 2,000 people that didn't even bother to vote in that race. So I'm not buying it. I'm really not. And in fairness, and I've said this, I like the idea of an airport. I want the airport to be expanded in a way that makes sense with private investment rather than the city of McKinney eating all the losses. That's my biggest peeve with the whole thing. And I understand there's people that don't like airports because they don't like airports. There's people that are worried about flights overhead. I think that's kind of overblown. But again, to each their own. And there's people legitimately worried about environmental impact. I guess I get it. But in today's day and age, I really think they do a good job of mitigating most of that stuff. So it really, in my mind, it keys on who should be paying for this. Again, so they're gaslighting us when they tell us that the pro-airport people won hands down. They didn't. The numbers show they didn't. Anybody that's been paying attention knows they didn't. That being said, they promptly didn't listen. They promptly approved the current deal. And to be fair, the current deal is so much better than the previous deal. And the funding mechanism and all this other stuff, there's still legitimate questions, which is why, to my knowledge, 2 people voted against it because they have questions that haven't been answered yet. So while they say it's a done deal, while they say the people have spoken by a single election outcome, yeah, that's a stretch. That's a stretch. And again, with the revised deal, I'm kind of okay with it. I know that's anathema to a lot of the people that they're hating on the airport. I get it. But I'm still confident that the vast majority of the people that are going to show up in the runoff are not going to be fooled and not going to be dissuaded. And really and truly, if the airport's a done deal, if the airport can't be undone, then why would I be worried about voting for Bill Cox? I mean, that was his primary call of action, right? He was supposed to carry on the legacy of the outgoing mayor and getting the airport and getting the development stuff done. Well, if that's been achieved and it can't be undone, then what's the loss if he loses? I'm not really sure that, there's a whole lot of thought that's gone into this other than we just don't like somebody that thinks differently than we do. And to me, that's sad. That's sad. You should be fully confident in what you believe and what you think, that you should never be terribly upset that somebody disagrees with you or has a difference of opinion. Very rarely do I lose any sleep over the idea that somebody disagrees with me or somebody thinks I'm wrong. I do get disappointed when they refuse to, talk like an adult, when they refuse to listen to a rational argument, that they just cover their ears and say, la, 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 la. I'm listening to the experts. Yeah, how did that work out for us in 21 and in 20? Did the experts get everything right then? I think not. But again, let's not relitigate things from 5 years ago. We're going forward, right? Always going forward. The election's over. We're going to move on to the next thing. Except for that runoff, right? So the runoff, again, my guy made the runoff for the mayoral race. I still think Scott Sanford's the best option. That being said, Bill Cox wins. I am not going to lose any sleep over it. On the at-large race, it is my sincere hope that Mr. Lynch wins. Honestly, I don't want it to be a blowout, but I just think he's a voice of reason and calm, even though he's going to support things that I'm not super enthusiastic about. It's also my sincere hope that he'll be gracious enough to reach out to the third place guy and say, hey, what can we agree on? What can we work together on in order to solidify his win? That alone should give him enough, or at least close enough, to get over that 50%. That doesn't mean that you disregard the other two guys, Derek Tarver and Dr. Ansari. They had legitimate questions. They had legitimate issues, and those should always be addressed. But historically, it's the guy that comes in next that gets brought into the fold and they find something for him to do. Doesn't always happen, but historically. All right, that's enough on that. The latest travails of the city of McKinney, they just never seem to end. All right, we're going to pivot over here to the state of Texas here. Right, so we've got the Texas Legislature is currently meeting. And for those of you that pay attention to the social medias, that great bastion of truth. So Matt Shaheen is apparently not my personal state rep, but he is one of my Collin County guys, and I have given him grace. I think he's a good guy. I trust him enough to mostly do the right thing. I mean, we're going to have difference of opinions. We're allowed to do that, right? We're all adults. So I'm not going to bash the guy, but he's taken it on the chin and allegedly shot himself in the foot with a couple of things that have gone on. So one thing I'm at a loss is we want the primaries closed. It's basically a priority from the Republican Party of Texas. He's the chairman of the committee that's looking into this. It's on our platform. It's in our, we've made it very important. And he's worried about a collection of county chairmen that allegedly represent the grassroots being opposed to this. Now, let's take a step back. Why might there be an organization of county chairmen that would be opposed to this? Could it be because it threatens their power? Could it be because it gives people an ability to have more authority? Could it be that some of these county chairs don't want to give up their power? I'm well aware of a number of counties where the county chair is basically the dictator of the Republican Party in that county. I'm pretty sure that doesn't follow the principles of the party, but that's where we're at. So that, and then the special cutout, if you will, for Chinese visitors to purchase property in the state of Texas. We spend an awful lot of time cutting deals with Democrats, all the while failing to pay attention to the people that get you reelected time after time after time. And it comes to mind that perhaps you think you just don't need us anymore. Perhaps you think we have nowhere else to go. Perhaps you think that you will always stay in power because we don't have a better option. It just means we're going to have more drama in the party going forward. It just does. I mean, at least we got Brian Harrison down there pointing out what's going on, right? Now, I don't know, but I suspect my state reps that have, let's just say, done a less than stellar job this go around, unless they pull a rabbit out of the hat in the remaining weeks that are left in the session, are going to have to come home and explain why we didn't get the most conservative session ever, but we got the most expensive ever. I just don't get it. The other thing that I thought was kind of interesting is apparently the legislature has saw fit to basically do an unlimited renewal on the Article 5 convention. Now, I know people are mixed on this. I myself have kind of taken the position that I don't support it, but I'm not going to work against it. I don't think it's what's best, but I don't think it's the worst thing either. the state legislature saw fit to put forth this and basically make it unlimited. I think it was 18 years, which that's a generation. Now, we could rescind it. I mean, that's not likely to happen because the current governor that we just can't seem to do anything to change his mind on anything is saw fit to do this. I mean, much like the school choice debacle that they've shoved down our throat, we're going to get stuck with this. But what's interesting is it passed. I think the Republican convention was roughly 85% in favor of renewing a call for an Article 5 convention. And so as the Republican Party goes, I would like to think that our legislature goes, or at least the governor or lieutenant governor maybe pays attention to what we do, since we're the people that get people out of their seats to go vote for these folks. At least that's what we're supposed to believe. But that being said, there is a single platform plank. I believe it's number 24. I'm going to look it up real quick. Oh, yes. The Texas legislature shall extend the call for a convention of states. And it says specifically to impose physical restraints on the federal government, limit the power and jurisdiction of the federal government, limit the terms of office of federal officials and members of Congress. So it seems very limited, but we shall see. But there's not one but two planks that reference giving the people a voice on whether or not Texas should become an independent state again. Keeping in mind, it's a non-binding resolution to be voted on in a Texas Republican primary, which means it has no force of law. It is just a fancy popularity poll. But we can't get that done. No. We can't bring that up. We wouldn't want to let the people talk about that. Which, curiously, there we go. Curiously enough, they are willing to potentially do that for gambling, casino gambling, which is a mixed bag. I'm not sure that that's a net positive to the state of Texas. It might mean more money. In fact, I'm fairly certain we're going to get more revenue, but our costs are going to go up dramatically too. So it's a question as whether it's a net positive or not. I'm not going to lose sleep over it one way or the other, because at the end of the day, Jesus is still on the throne. Christ is king. We're moving on. But I don't see why we would be in such a hurry to go ahead and legalize that kind of thing when we know what follows it. But that's where we're at, right? We can't get the legislator to do the things we've asked them to do, but then they continue to do things we didn't ask them to do. While we're at it, we banned memes. You must disclose it's a meme, even though for 90% of the people out there with more than 2 brain cells, it's quite obvious it's a meme from the get-go, where it's mocking politically elected officials who, by the way, really shouldn't have that kind of protection. And the courts have never really saw fit to give them that kind of protection, but here we are. And just so we're clear, there was a Texas Sovereignty Act that we're still waiting on that to pass through. We're hopeful for it, but still not yet happened. And in addition to that, we wanted to go with, Texas issuing gold or silver for a legal tender. Thank you. Wow. Legal tender. And let me make sure I got this right. They amended it to say we have to ask the court's permission. We have to get the blessing of a court, a federal court, no less. We are a sovereign state. We're supposed to be able to control the things that go on within our state, but we're going to ask a federal court's blessing for something that should be a reserved power. The federal constitution's clear on that. The state constitution's clear on that. Yet, we can't get our legislature to do the very thing that they ought to have done in the first place. But we're going to ask a federal court. And while we're in the topic of federal courts, even though it's kind of, again, deviating off of the Texas theme here at the moment, how is it a single district judge, and that district should typically be, in the federal courts, one of, I think it's 6. No, there's 9, because it's the, okay, so the 9th Circuit Court. So there's, I don't know, it doesn't matter. A circuit court does not have authority over the entire United States. It just doesn't. So where do these district judge get off putting an injunction on for the entire country? They don't have that authority. They say the president doesn't have authority, that the president may or may not actually have, but then they issue the same argument, giving themselves authority that they were never granted in the first place. How does that work exactly? And the whole concept of judicial review is very problematic at this point. So we've got states that should be in charge that refuse to do anything because a federal court might say no, when the federal court doesn't really have any say over what goes on within the boundaries of a state for an intrastate issue, but we just pretend it does. And then we've got district courts that seem to think that they rule over the entire country when we have a judicial tyranny, and that puts our president, love him or hate him, but it puts him in the president where he's going to have to play Andrew Jackson, right? Well, you made your opinion known there. Now you try and enforce it because we're going to do what I want to do because I'm the president. I mean, I don't like it. I think it's messy. But if by some means we could get, I don't know, the U.S. Congress to do their job, perhaps the president wouldn't have to be doing all this crazy stuff, quote unquote crazy stuff. Just to be clear, most of it I don't believe is crazy, but I'm not comfortable with all of it either. But if you look at the stuff that's going on in Texas and the way the Texas legislature seems more interested in catering to the people that are not in power, they seem more interested in keeping Democrats happy than actually delivering to the people that put them in office in the first place, one wonders, why don't they listen? Why won't they just do the bare minimum? I mean, since I moved to Texas nearly 29 years ago, all I've ever heard about Texas is this, Texas is that, and yet the people that we send to Austin to represent us in Texas kind of seem to have lost some parts of their anatomy when we sent them there. I don't know if it's because their respective spouses have them on top of the refrigerator back at home, or if it's just that they're all afraid of the lieutenant governor and the governor. I don't know. But one wonders, when does a Texan quit being a Texan? The only answer that seems to make sense is when we send them in Austin. And with that, this has been According to Callus, and I will see you on the other side.
TexianPride.com is the destination for Texans who want to show off their love for Texas. We don't settle for mediocre. Our shirts are made from 100% high-quality athletic cotton. They're cool, comfortable, and designed to fit and flatter any body type. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Visit TexianPride.com for your next stylish Texas tee.